Hello, everyone, and it's World Menopause Month. So happy World Menopause Month. The theme this year for 2025 is lifestyle medicine, and we are so excited about that. And I have with me two of the greatest exponents of lifestyle medicine you could ever wish to have for a midlife woman, our one and only Dr. Lisa Cochrane and Nurse Julie Dutton. Hi, Jules. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's very exciting to have
Thank
the
you.
opportunity to talk about lifestyle medicine.
Isn't it,
Yeah,
though?
great to be here.
It's fantastic. And I mean, the relevance of this is so important, right? Because at WellFemme, we're helping women with their symptoms, helping them to live their best life at midlife. But the beauty of getting information at the right time like this is that women can really focus on the things they can do moving forward for healthy aging. So it's really opportunistic in these menopause talks that we have at WellFemme to be able to talk about lifestyle medicine and help support women in making changes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, actually, Ellie. I think that's very much how I got started. Actually, was I suddenly wasn't able to drink alcohol, and that was about 6 years ago. And from that journey, that's where my kind of love of lifestyle medicine and these little changes that you can make to your life to help you to sort of age better sort of started to come about. Really, I don't know about you, Lisa. How did you get into it?
Yeah, I think there was, it was twofold. So one was around COVID, I was really noticing that my patient population was really, really struggling. I was seeing more and more sort of women in midlife, and there was a lot of chronic disease. And I think because stress had really compounded everything. And at the same time, the same sort of thing. I just felt like, oh, my body's not doing what it used to do. And surely there must be a better way to manage health. And that led me on the pathway to lifestyle medicine, and it's been fantastic and very, very eye-opening at the power, or how much power we have as women to really take control of our health and really prevent a lot of those chronic diseases that can creep up on us with age.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to hear more about that. There's so much to cover. So how about we launch straight in? I'm going to start the presentation now, and perhaps you can kick us off, Lisa.
Thanks, Kelly. So, I'm Dr. Lisa Cochrane. I'm one of the GPs working at WellFemme, and my passion is definitely menopause care and lifestyle medicine. So I'm studying towards a fellowship in lifestyle medicine at the moment, and I'm very excited to be able to share that with you. So we've titled this talk "The Lifestyle Medicine Secrets Every Woman Should Know." So probably the most important thing is to talk about what lifestyle medicine is, because most people haven't heard of it before. Lifestyle medicine is a well-recognized branch of Western medicine, and it particularly focuses on using lifestyle changes to prevent, manage, and also sometimes reverse chronic disease. So in general practice, about 80% of the consultations that we see are around chronic disease. So a lot of those chronic diseases can be very well managed with lifestyle changes, sometimes alone and sometimes actually in conjunction with the traditional sort of medical pathway you'd usually go down. So lifestyle medicine is made up of 6 key pillars, and I've listed them there. So not surprisingly, it's nutrition and movement. I've avoided using the word exercise because that sometimes has some quite negative connotations, because movement can be a lot of different things. Managing stress, which is incredibly important. That should almost be at the top, I think, because of how much of a role stress plays in our health, and sometimes we don't recognise that. Sleeping well, avoiding risky substances, and social connection. So I think social connection is a really interesting one, because it's often not something we talk about in the context of health, but it actually has really profound impacts on our health, and particularly at midlife when we're really busy doing lots of other things. So the first thing we're going to go into is food and nutrition, and looking at that in the context of how we can use food as medicine around this time of menopause. So I've popped up a quote there from Michael Pollan, who's he's a journalist who's written extensively about nutrition. So eat whole foods, mostly plants, not too much. So it's a very simplistic idea, but it does really summarize the sorts of changes that are really helpful around this time of life. So in the first instance, whole foods, what does that mean? So essentially it just means foods in the way they're found in nature. So minimal ingredients, minimal processing. Around this menopause time, our bodies change quite dramatically with, which I'm sure is not news to most of you, but when our hormones change, we become much less able to process sugars. So we become a bit more insulin resistant, and often we notice things like weight gain around the tummy, eating what we used to doesn't seem to have the same impact now as it did then. And cutting back on processed foods and added sugars is a really relatively easy way to help promote that balance in midlife. There's a lot of information on the internet, on social media about all different types of eating patterns, and it's a huge topic. But what I want to talk most about today is something called the Mediterranean style eating pattern. Unfortunately, it doesn't involve eating pizza and pasta and gelato, but it is mostly around, it's very adaptable. So it's essentially a whole foods diet that can be adapted for sort of different cultural situations, different family situations, and has really good research behind it for this menopausal stage of life to help prevent some of those chronic diseases. The other thing to talk about is protein. So again, as our hormones change, our lean muscle mass tends to really go down. And as we age, we do need to eat more protein to support our muscles. Our muscles play a really big role in protecting us, helping our bone density, protecting us from falls and frailty. And so, yeah, protein is something that we'll discuss. So I don't like using the word diet. I think the word eating pattern is much more helpful. As women, we're really saturated with messages about dieting, and I think that's very unhelpful when it comes to thinking about what can support our health. So let's talk about the Mediterranean eating pattern rather than diet. I think something that's really interesting about this food pyramid is at the bottom, it really speaks to the context in which we eat. So our nutrition isn't just about the foods that we eat, it's also about the context in which we eat it. So a meal eaten with family sitting down at the table is very different to a meal eaten on the couch watching Netflix. So the social context makes a big difference to how our bodies work. The first band there is the wide variety of fruits and vegetables and grains that we all know are very good for us. You'll see a bottle of olive oil there as well. As part of the diet culture, I think we've been told to avoid fats and have low-fat diet. It's actually really, really important, particularly around menopause, to be consuming enough in the way of healthy fats. We do need some fats in our diet to be able to absorb our vitamins, and things like olive oil, avocado, nuts, the fish in the next band up. They're really healthy types of fats that are very health promoting and are definitely associated with a much lower risk of heart disease, so heart attack, stroke, diabetes in the future. The next band above that is the fish and seafood. So again, around menopause, we do need more in the way of protein and healthy fats, as well as the omega-3 fatty acids. So seafood's a great source of those. When we talk about, so the next band, we've got the cheese and eggs and chicken. when we talk about dairy and calcium, we're often really conscious of our bone density at menopause. And yes, it's helpful to have some dairy, but there's also a lot of calcium in the other whole foods, so in the fish and in the fruits and vegetables. So if you're not able to have dairy, you can still get enough calcium to support your bones from some of the other foods. And then at the top, we've got meats and sweets, which just means sort of junk food and processed food. So having meat at the top, that's related to the World Health Organization classifying red meat as something that can promote some types of cancer, like bowel cancer. And the recommendations are to keep meat eating to say once or twice a week, knowing that very high meat intake is definitely associated with some types of cancers, particularly colorectal cancer. But I think the beauty of the Mediterranean eating pattern is that you can adapt it to your own needs. So depending on who you're living with, who you're eating with, and what sort of cultural needs you have around your eating pattern. So the Mediterranean eating pattern is probably the type of eating pattern that's been most researched as far as preventing chronic disease. So when I talk about chronic disease, I'm talking about things like heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure, high cholesterol. So Mediterranean eating pattern is very helpful. So we've talked a little bit about some of the benefits there. So I'll just move past that. I think it's helpful to talk about how our nutrition supports our mental health. I think for anyone in perimenopause and menopause, most of us probably have the experience of having some irritability, maybe some mood changes, some changes to our mental health. And the Mediterranean eating pattern it's got really good research behind it as far as supporting mental health as well. And certainly for people living with sort of mild to moderate anxiety and depression, adopting a Mediterranean eating pattern can go a long way to helping with symptoms. So I think it's worthwhile thinking of nutrition for the whole of our health, both mental and physical. So I mentioned earlier that we do need more protein as we age to support our lean muscle mass. A really common thing that I see in clinic is women who have got to their 70s or 80s and they're living with a lot of frailty, so they don't have a lot of muscle mass. They're quite prone to falls, and just getting on top of the protein early in our sort of menopausal journey is a really good way to avoid some of those issues that can creep up on us later. There's no strict rule about how much protein you need, or more to say that the science isn't 100% clear about how much protein we need, but somewhere around 1.2 grams per kilo of body weight per day is about right. And some people will need a bit more depending on what's happening in their life. So if you're, let's say, 70 to 75 kilos, then somewhere around, 90 grams is a good place to start, and ideally spread across 3 meals of the day. Lots and lots of different sources of protein out there. That can be plant-based, they can be animal-based, but just being conscious of how much protein you're having is a really good way to help support your health. So I think probably again, there's a lot to talk about with nutrition, and I think there can be a lot of confusion about what's the right thing to eat to support your health during menopause. And I'd say these are probably the 5 keys that are sort of universally helpful. Plants and whole foods first. So minimizing processed foods. embracing healthy fats, as we discussed, and of course prioritizing protein. Now, I haven't spoken much about the gut microbiome. That's another very big topic, but all of the plant materials that we eat are really, really good at supporting our gut bug, so our microbiome, to help support our health. And I think probably the most important thing is not to get lost in the weeds. You don't need to be aiming towards perfection, and not every meal needs to be perfect. It's just about finding a healthful eating pattern that works for you most of the time. So that's so that's sort of a very short summary of nutrition and what we can do in terms of nutrition for menopause. So Jules, I'd love to pass over to you to talk about physical activity.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. So anybody that knows me well knows how much I really enjoy my exercise, and I particularly enjoy strength training, actually, and that's largely, I think, my history of working as a nurse for many years. And as I sort of approached my late 30s, early 40s, I started to sort of recognise the importance of strength training, really, just because I wanted to try and prevent hip fractures and falls and things, because I'd looked after so many patients who'd had their quality of life really impacted by having a fractured hip. And so I really like this statement, actually, that exercise is the miracle cure. And I really do think that. So physical activity can help manage chronic symptoms of chronic disease and also help reduce the risk of chronic disease. So what happens during menopause and perimenopause? It really is a time of increased physical vulnerability, and that's really due to the lack of hormones that we're no longer producing. And our hormones are really powerful. They're very protective against bone loss, against muscle loss, against cardiovascular disease, and as Lisa just mentioned, about metabolic disease as well, and also brain health and cognitive function. And so some of the potential benefits of physical exercise, and you really don't need to do much, even just 10 minutes of walking a day can really have an impact on your overall health and well-being. But there's just some of the things there you can see. So it helps prevent diabetes, helps lower the risk of breast cancer, cardiovascular disease that we just mentioned, dementia, depression. Walking's actually a really good way of loosening up your back and helping your back pain. It helps to reduce the risk of cancers, and also prevent falls. And I think that's a really key element to physical activity as we age, is really looking at how we stop ourselves from falling, because these falls do often end in debilitating disease and conditions and illness. So I think when we look at physical activity, when we actually look at the guidelines, what's recommended that we do? And I think people can get a little bit caught up in this. And I really want to sort of emphasize that something is better than nothing. But for sort of younger people, it's recommended that we do between 2.5 to 5 hours of moderate activity a week. So that can be things like swimming, mowing the lawn, playing golf, going for a walk, anything that you can talk to your friends, or anything that you're not really out of breath doing, can really, that's kind of your moderate activity. Or they say up to 1.25 to 2.5 hours of intensive exercise. And that's when we think about intensive exercise, that's the exercise that you really couldn't hold a conversation doing. So we're thinking running, playing soccer, anything that's sort of big bursts of energy. And particularly as we age, we really need to think about muscle strengthening activities. So that's things like where we're loading our bones. So it might be jumping, skipping, weight training, carrying your shopping from the car. And that's really to tell our bones that we to build more strong, healthy bones. So it's giving feedback to our bones to make the bones stronger for us. And then as we get older, I can't actually see it on here because the presentations come across a bit funny, but from 65 years on, what we really want to think about is how are we looking, how do we want to age well, and what is going to keep us aging well and moving well. And that is things like the fitness. So again, the swimming, the walking, playing golf, bowls, whatever you want to do. But also we need to add some strength exercising into that as well. We really want to be thinking about balance and flexibility as well. And that really is so that, again, preventing us from falling and keeping our joints loose and mobile. There's just some examples of some exercises there. I don't expect people to be standing on their head, their hands, but nevertheless. And I think some of the key points with physical activity is, if you are concerned about starting something, get yourself cleared by a medical professional, and they can take you through some simple steps, do some screening on you to make sure that you're not at risk, and then perhaps refer you on to maybe a physiotherapist or an exercise physiologist. If you're pretty comfortable and think that you could start yourself, just try and build activity into your day. So think about little 5-minute exercises, walking to the shops, taking the stairs, parking a little bit further away from the bus stop, parking a little bit further away from the shops, etc. And try and build it into your day. Pair it with something you enjoy doing. So pair it with a podcast or music, or even better, do it with friends as well. And then you get in that social connection, so you sort of get in two of the lifestyle pillars for one. And even better, do it outside. And really do try and think about how you can break up periods of sitting. Like, I think sitting is the new smoking, really. It's really not good for you. Break it up with little exercise snacks. So what we mean by that is little tiny things that you can build into your day, maybe 10 squats, maybe 10 lunges, maybe run up and down the stairs a couple of times, just to move your body and stop you from sort of sitting in that same position. Your back will thank you. And again, like I said before, something is better than nothing. Even 10 minutes a day has a massive impact on your risk of developing chronic disease. So just start with something manageable. Don't let fear stop you, and just build up slowly. And we've just got a selection of ideas here, and we will have a downloadable resource for you afterwards, so I won't dwell on this. But there are some fabulous apps that can sort of get you started for anything that you fancy, any particular hobby that you might be interested in. Like I said before, get expert help. If you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know where to start, there's plenty of people out there that can help you. There's some fabulous books there that are great, and I'm a big fan of wearable devices as well. So I've got a Garmin watch and an Oura ring, so that just can kind of motivate you. But again, it depends on you, what motivates you as a person and what you enjoy doing. But that's just some ideas for how you can get started. So over to you, Lisa.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, so Jules and I, we nerd out quite a bit about our Oura rings. We compare our stats and talk about new and novel ways to use them. So yeah, they can also be quite fun, some of these wearables. So I'd love to talk about stress. Stress is something that I would say is probably one of the number one things I talk about with patients. It's something that's universal, and I think that in midlife we're at a particularly stressful time. We've all got a lot going on, so it's that time where we're perhaps at the intersection of having kids. We're at the peak of busyness of work often. We might be caring for our aging parents, and we might also be having some some physical symptoms ourselves. So there's a lot of things going on that can really compound our stress. And I think stress management isn't something, it's certainly not something that we're taught at school, and so it's certainly a skill that we can all learn. So, also these slides have come out a little bit skewy, but this concept of a stress bucket, I think, is really helpful. As a bit of an audit, we can have a look ourselves at what are the things that are contributing to our stress bucket. So, what stresses are going in? Could they be our menopause symptoms, like where we're not sleeping well? Are there issues around, say, finances or work? Family, relationships, you name it. So they're all things that contribute to this chronic stress burden. But it's really helpful then to know, well, what are the things that I can control? What are the things that we as women can actually do and implement that are free to really help control some of those chronic stresses? So things like, I've got them listed there, but socializing, movement, learning a way, whether it be meditating or reading, but learning some tool to be able to help reduce what we call the sympathetic drive, or that sort of fight or flight, tired and wide, that sort of feeling that I think a lot of us have experienced. So not all stress is bad, actually. There's good evidence to show that short-term stress can be quite helpful and can promote resilience. But short-term stress is the sort of stress that we have control over to stop. So a situation in our life that has an end point, and when it's over, we don't think about it again. That's short-term stress. The chronic stress is a whole different thing, and long-term chronic stress can have a really big impact on our body. We're already under stress around menopause because of the huge fluctuation in hormones. So adding extra life stresses on top of that can have a big impact on sort of our energy levels and also that risk of chronic disease that we've been talking about. So there are some really interesting studies that have been done specifically around women in menopause. And one study showed that for women who have a lot of job stress, but are in a situation where they don't have much ability to control it, those women have much worse menopause symptoms. And I think studies like that highlight very much that we need to be taking this dialogue around menopause and health into our workplaces. And I think it's something that's starting, but it's certainly something we need to be talking more about, the role of menopause and work and how we can support women in their workplaces, because that will help with their symptoms enormously. Another study showed that a higher level of mindfulness and a lower level of perceived stress was associated with much more mild and much fewer menopause symptoms. So mindfulness, it's a word that's used in a range of different ways, but mindfulness essentially means having a sense of what's happening in your body and perceived stress, obviously, being able to look at the stress and put it in context. And we can talk about some ways that we can do this. I think it's really helpful to talk about stress management as a skill. So I have had quite a lot of patients say, oh, I'm not good at, I'm not good at managing my stress. I never have been. And that's often because we haven't been taught the skills to manage stress. So it's a little bit like learning a new language. It's pretty slow and pretty frustrating at the beginning, but the more we do, the better we get and the more comfortable we become with it. There's no one right technique, and I think it's often helpful to find something that just resonates with you. So some ideas are things like breath work or breathing techniques, mindfulness meditation, nature, they call it nature bathing, but just being in nature, doing some mindset work. So that's things like gratitude journaling or training yourself to have a positive mindset. And the one that I'll run through with you today, because it's super easy and very doable for everyone, is the 3-4-5 breathing technique. So when we feel our bodies in that stressed state and we're sort of stuck in that stress state, we can use our breath to actually switch back into what we call the parasympathetic state, or that more relaxed state. So with this breathing technique, all you do is just breathe into the count of 3 And then you hold your breath to the count of 4, and then breathe out to the count of 5. I usually recommend trying to do that 3 times a day regularly to be able to practice it, so that when you're in a really stressful situation, you've had the practice, you know it helps you. So developing some technique like the ones above is a really great way to just calm those stress hormones in the body. So one of my favorites also is mindfulness meditation. So the idea of mindfulness meditation is not very complicated. It's essentially, we've all got noisy minds. We've all got lots of different things happening inside our heads. And the idea of mindfulness meditation is to be able to acknowledge what's all that noise that's happening in our head, but also acknowledge that we can just let it go by. We don't need to focus on it. That's all it is. I've got a recommendation for an app here, which is the Smiling Mind app. It's a free Australian app that you can configure in whatever way you want. But even starting a practice of, say, 5 minutes a day of mindfulness has been shown to significantly reduce some of the physical effects of chronic stress. So like the chronic disease we were talking about, your high blood pressure, your high cholesterol, those sorts of things, which I think around menopause, it's a really good time to start having those discussions about how we can jump in early and really minimize our risk. So yeah, so these have all got bunched up, but they're probably the 5 keys for getting that stress under control. Use your breath as a reset button. There's lots of different ways of doing. There's no one right way, but something like the 3-4-5 technique is a great go-to just to get you from sort of up here to back down to feeling a bit calmer. Move your body daily. So I haven't specifically mentioned it there, but movement is an incredibly effective way of discharging that stress. So if we come home at the end of a busy day and we're, really feeling stressed out, even just a 10-minute walk is enough to dissipate a lot of those stress hormones and get us feeling a lot better. I've put here, let go of trying to change what is out of our control. I feel like this is something that we all do from time to time, but we can really only take control of the things that are in our own lives, and it's often the things that are out of our control that can cause us the most stress. And mindfulness meditation is a really good way to help manage those and to be able to let go of the things that we just couldn't possibly change. Rest is productive. So I think it's important to know that rest is an actual activity. Even when we're really busy, it's important to actually carve out time for rest so that our bodies and our nervous systems can really repair. And protect your boundaries. So this really speaks to the fact that we do have a lot of competing needs around this time of our life, and there's lots of people and things that need our attention. It is definitely important to make sure we do protect our own boundaries. When we start to do all the things and be all the things for everyone, that is a really big cause of chronic stress. So protecting your boundaries when you can. So, Jules, I'd love to pass back to you to talk about sleep.
Just going back to your stress management, actually, as I mentioned before, I love my exercise, and one of my lecturers at uni said that meditation and mindfulness activities are like strength training for your brain. I was like, okay, cool, got it. And understanding that you can sort of have that control over what you think about, where you put your attention, where you put your focus. That really made sense for me. So yeah.
I love that. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, so sleep. So this is something that I think sort of Kelly and Lisa will both say that unfortunately menopausal and perimenopausal women do notice that they have changes to sleep patterns. And so hopefully these tips will give you a little bit of an idea. So sleep, as we know, is essential for health and well-being. Our sleep is made up of cycles, and the average person has about 5 to 6 sleep cycles every night. The average sleep cycle is about 90 minutes, and we have 4 different stages within that sleep cycle. And each of those stages are key to our health and well-being, and it's believed that they sort of have different functions. Okay, so we've got the first stage of sleep, and this is our kind of initial phase. This is where we go to sleep, and we go into that second stage of sleep. And then the second stage of sleep is that's where we start to relax. So I know my partner, he twitches as he goes to sleep. So you just sort of notice that your body's starting to relax, your heart rate and your respiratory rate fall down, and then it's just preparing you to get into that really deep sleep. So the deep sleep is really important. It's restorative. It helps our immune system. It helps get rid of all the toxins that build up in our brain during the day. It's really important for our growth, for our muscle growth, for our cellular repair and recovery. And then the REM stage of sleep is where we have our vivid dreams, and that's where we sort of have our creativity. That's where we do where our memories get stored and written, and also where our learning gets sort of processed and things like that. And it's really important that we sort of recognise these sleep stages, because sleep disorders, if you have issues with certain with these stages, then sleep disorders can sort of be looked at and diagnosed from the effects on those sleep stages. So sleep and menopause. So why does it happen at this stage? So well, our hormones, as we know, are very powerful, and declining ovarian hormone production, particularly progesterone, affects our sleep. So progesterone is our calming hormone, and it keeps us calm, chilled out, and allows us to sleep. And it's often the first hormone that we sort of notice declining, and we really feel those impacts on sleep. We also notice that the production of melatonin declines naturally as we age. But then we've got estrogen making an appearance, and we have hot flashes and some of the other vasomotor symptoms that we experience. So those hot flashes might be keeping us awake at night, raising our heart rate, making us feel anxious. We've also got restless legs and things as well that can keep us up at night as well. Some women say that the thermoregulation effects as well of declining hormones affects they feel really hot at night, maybe not necessarily a hot flash, but they're kicking the bedclothes on and off, and we really sort of have issues with our thermoregulation, because estrogen is very powerful at controlling our sensitivity to temperature changes. There's also stress as well, again linking back to progesterone, and it's often a time of where we get a new onset of sleep disorders, things like obstructive sleep apnea, and that's largely believed to be related to progesterone as well. So progesterone, it affects the way that our muscles relax in our neck, and also how sensitive our brain is to changes in gas levels as well. So it's not uncommon for obstructive sleep apnea to make an appearance at this stage in life, and that's something that really does need to be investigated and things put in place to combat that, because it can have some really serious chronic health impacts. And obviously we've got the good old needing to use the bathroom and having to get up and down in the night as well, which can also affect our sleep.
Yeah, Jules, just on that point, you make a really good point about things like sleep apnea, and the fact that sleep disorders are so much more common around midlife, not just us, but our partners as well, and the partner disturbance is a thing. So definitely people should be talking to their GPs. There's lots of screening tools you can use, screening questionnaires. We have a whole bunch of those actually in our next phase women's wellness program that you can kind of do self-check. So I might put some links to some of the online versions of the sleep disorder screening questionnaires, but definitely something you need to be talking to your GP about, and organising perhaps a sleep study, which can even be done at home.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Kelly. And I think if your partner or your children or somebody is saying, oh, I'm really noticing you snoring, or different sleep behaviours, do get checked out, because these, like I said before, these conditions can really impact your health. Yeah. Okay, so the key sort of points in this stage, and looking at sleep, is, like we said before, talk to your GP about possible sleep studies or in any issues. If you're having tiredness during the day, again, it's another symptom that's very common in this stage of life. But if you are having unusual tiredness, unable to stay awake during the day, do be thinking about sleep disorders as well, not just necessarily it's hormones, or just think big picture. Consider hormone replacement therapy to replace the estrogen and progesterone that can affect your sleep, and again, investigate underlying causes. I think being strict on good sleep hygiene. So what we mean by sleep hygiene is how you prepare to go to bed. Some people can just fall asleep anywhere, but some people do need to wind down before bed. Having a good, consistent, same time that you wake, same time that you go to bed. Our bodies really like consistency. Think about your bedroom, think about the environment that you sleep in. Consider the impacts of food as well, eating too late at night, having caffeine too late in the day. Alcohol really does not help you to sleep. It may help you to fall asleep, but it does not help you to go into those deep restorative sleep stages that we really need for health and wellness. I've invest in a good pillow and a good bed. I think it's money well spent. And if you are having sleep disorders and there is no underlying mechanical reason why you've got a sleep disorder, cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia is the gold standard evidence-based recommendation for sleep disorders. And that's really retraining your brain and your sleep behaviours to help you get a better night's sleep. And we've actually got a link to a free resource on here as well. And like Lisa said, practicing those relaxation techniques, leaving your stress behind, trying to put everything down on paper before you go to bed, getting rid of all your negative thoughts, and really kind of practice relaxation before you go to bed as well. And here's just some of the again, it hasn't come across very well, but some of the resources that I would recommend. So the course there, This Way Up, that's a free course, cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, that you could register and do in your own time. I really do like these podcasts as well, and the Digital Sleep Toolkit from Andrew Huberman, and the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker is absolutely incredible, explaining the health and wellness benefits of sleep and how our brain needs sleep and sort of detoxes during our sleep. So yeah, did you have anything to add on that one, Lisa?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. This Way Up is one of my favorite resources. I'm not 100% sure. Is it free for everyone to sign up for? Certainly with, if you talk to a practitioner who's registered with This Way Up, we can waive the fee and refer you. But it's such a good resource that takes you through a little 4-week program that really, really helps to reset your sleep. So that's one of my favorite ones. I talk to women about a lot. Fantastic. Yeah. No, thanks, Jules. So I'm going to be talking about smoking and alcohol in the context of menopause. And I think it's an interesting topic because we do live, or in Australia anyway, we live in a culture that almost celebrates alcohol. And I think it's a conversation I have a lot with my patients around some of the difficulties of cutting back on alcohol for women even when they want to, because there's we use alcohol for for celebrations, we use it for stress, we use it when we're bored. So there's a lot of reasons socially why alcohol is such a common thing in our culture, and it's something that I definitely find can be difficult to cut back on for women even if they want to. So in terms of alcohol and smoking, as I've put it in the context of breast cancer here, when we're thinking about menopause and particularly having a conversation about menopausal hormone therapy, one of the most common questions is around breast cancer. And I think this is a really helpful infographic to tell us a bit about what are the lifestyle factors, including alcohol and smoking, that can increase our risk of breast cancer. So I've highlighted the alcohol statistic there. So this is an infographic from the British Menopause Society, and at the top there it says that so our background risk as women is that we're going to, let's say, 23 cases of breast cancer per 1,000 women in the population. They're UK statistics, but they're basically the same for Australia. So if we look at alcohol, so women who have 2 or more units of alcohol, and a unit is not the same as a glass of alcohol, so 2 or more units per day, there'll be an extra 5 cases of breast cancer on top of baseline. And I think it's really interesting that you can see the image just below about smoking. Smoking certainly can increase the risk, but not even as much as alcohol. So I'm not sure that's something that is widely known, but I think it's a helpful piece of information to know, so we can make some decisions around how much alcohol is sort of going to fit within our life. Just speaking back to what Jules was saying about all the wonderful, wonderful things about exercise, you can see the image at the bottom. So women who sort of do the appropriate amount of exercise per week have a significantly lower risk of breast cancer. So we have a lot of power in these lifestyle changes to really reduce our risk, which I think is fantastic. So in terms of I just mentioned that a unit of alcohol is not a glass. So the average glass of wine would be really about 1.5 units. So you can see it doesn't really take much to really get up to that 2 units a day. And in terms of alcohol, I often find that we often do use it as a stress management tool. And so if you're looking at, say, cutting back on alcohol, then employing some of those stress management techniques can be really, really helpful. So why does alcohol cause problems in midlife and around menopause? So around menopause, we actually stop being able to break down alcohol as well as we used to. So we have an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase that breaks it up for us in our bodies. And as we age, we actually make a lot less of that, which is why, as Jules said, she experienced in her 40s that she just couldn't tolerate alcohol as well as she used to, which is sort of universal for all of us. The other thing about alcohol is that it can really have a huge impact on our menopausal symptoms. So it can accelerate our hot flushes. It can certainly make our sleep a lot worse than it would do otherwise. Jules talked about those 4 phases of sleep. Alcohol really does impair that deep restorative sleep, which is often why when we wake up we don't feel quite as good as we would like. And certainly, so it definitely promotes a lot of the menopause symptoms and makes them worse. So, as I said, even small amounts disrupt sleep. So like even 1 unit of alcohol can disrupt sleep. Makes the hot flushes worse, increases breast cancer risk. And I think if you're using it for stress, go back. We're going to be giving you access to a collection of resources that will just give you some of those tips around stress management options to see if that might be something that can help as far as minimizing alcohol. I haven't talked much about smoking. You can see obviously that smoking does increase breast cancer risk. It definitely increases your risk for osteoporosis as well as cancer. So I think we all know that. And if you're struggling with cutting back on smoking or giving up, it's a great idea to go and chat with your GP, because there's lots of different tools out there that we can use, medicated tools, not medicated tools. There's lots and lots of different options out there. So have a chat with your GP. I'm talking about risky substances. I just want to give a little mention to screen time, which I would say probably fits into that risky substance category to some degree. So for those of us with teenagers, I think we're all used to the sort of trying to convince others to cut back on screen time, but it's something that actually has a really big impact on sleep and stress in menopause. So I think being conscious of your screen time. Are you scrolling before bed and that's affecting your sleep? Are you finding that scrolling is affecting your sense of stress, your sense of well-being? It's just something to be conscious of. Yeah. So Jules is going to have a chat with us about social connection.
I think before I do that, Lisa, actually, I just wanted to say actually that the evidence does show that menopause and perimenopause is a time for when women can be a little bit more vulnerable to their changes in relationship with substances. So people might be finding that they are suddenly starting to struggle with their relationship with alcohol, so they might be trying to use it a lot more. And it is a recognised time of increased vulnerability to substance use disorders. So if that is you and you are sort of thinking, okay, you're questioning your relationship with alcohol or any other substances, there's things that you can do, and know that you're not alone, and it is a time that it does pose that kind of unstable relationship with alcohol and things. So just to recognise that.
No, thanks, Jules. And absolutely. So same goes for what I said about smoking. I think it's really helpful to have a chat with your GP. Often, perhaps we might not be aware of all the tools that are out there, both, again, medical and lifestyle tools and guidance. There's a lot of help out there, and GPs are very, very well situated to be able to provide you with some help and some guidance and some counselling around that. So, please don't ever feel shy to have a chat with your GP. At WellFemme, I mean, I tend to bring it up in my consultations all the time. It's just a really good discussion to have if it's something that you're concerned about. Yeah, thanks, Jules.
Yeah, and just recognizing that, actually my relationship with alcohol is changing. I don't like how it's impacting my life. I want to do something about it. Absolutely reach out to us and we can absolutely help you with that. So moving on just to and we talk about connection and social connection and really connection with the world around us, and it really does impact our health, and it shows up in lots of different ways. So it can be again, the slides haven't worked out so well. It can be in our human relationships, it can be with our animals, it can be the relationship that we have with ourselves and our self-worth and how we feel about ourselves and what we put out into the world. It can be that connection with nature and the natural world around us, and also the environment in which we live and work, our house, our communities, our towns, etc. As Lisa touched on, it can be the relationship with the digital world and the online world, and it can really be that that connection to our ancestry and our culture as well. And so it really does influence health. So physiologically, good connection and good healthy relationships with animals, with people, with our communities strengthens our immune system. It's cardiovascularly protective. It helps our metabolic system, and it also helps our nervous system and how we regulate ourselves as well. And if you think about how our social connections, how we interact with the people around us, it's how we learn how to behave. It's how we learn our social norms and how we seek our social support when we need, times of distress or when we need help. It also gives us meaning and a sense of identity and where we belong within our community, within our world as well. So it's very much how we learn how to be. And then psychologically, when we actually connect with other people, if you were to scan our brains, you can actually see that it lights up our brain. So it really does. It shows up on scans. You can physically see the effects of having good connection with people. And it reduces our amygdala activity. And so that helps with our emotional regulation and how we respond to things that happen to us in our life. And it also impacts our behaviour. So it influences the choices that we make about what we do, what we don't eat, how we eat. So it's sort of tying all these things together that we've talked about on this webinar. And just sort of quickly, so how do we do this? So think about spending time in nature. Think about spending time in the sun, at the beach, in the bush, just connecting with the world around us. Really importantly, and we have touched on a lot of these already, but think about how you spend your time. Choose to spend your time with people who fulfill you, sustain you, you enjoy being around. And really, at this stage of life, avoid toxic people, avoid toxic environments, and really, if you can, those relationships as well. Think about those boundaries. Think about just make some choices about where you put your energy. And also, I think this is this time of life. A lot of women will say to me, "I just don't know who I am anymore. I've lost my sense of self. I've lost my sense of identity as our hormonal changes are influencing our brain and who we're becoming." And it is a real opportunity to think about you and how you want to kind of grow and learn and live the sort of third chapter of your life, really. And if you feel brave enough, try something new, try a new hobby, mix with people you wouldn't normally mix with, volunteer in the community, and guarantee you'll get something out of it. And you'll also be giving back to the community, which will in turn make you feel better about yourself. And as Lisa just mentioned as well, think about how you spend your time online. So, maybe have a digital detox every now and again. Look at your social media channels. Think about the people that you want to follow. If somebody is making you feel uncomfortable by something that they're saying online, don't follow that person. Like, be intentional about how you use your time online and use it for good rather than to just pass the time of day. And I think something that's really, really important is that we really need to connect with other women at this stage of life. We need to really talk about menopause, what we're experiencing, what we're feeling. There is so much power in talking to someone and them saying to you, "I understand what you're going through. I am going through it too." And it's really bonding and you don't feel alone. And I think, and Lisa and Kelly will say this, a lot of the women we see, they've not had anybody to talk to about this. They felt like they felt like their world's turning upside down and they've had nobody that they can talk to. But when you do actually open the conversation, you can't stop it. Women want to talk about this. They want to talk about how they're feeling. So do whatever you can to talk to other women about what you're going through as well and share that experience. And it's how we can all really sort of grow as a culture and learn from it. And I think this is just to say, most importantly, with any of these lifestyle interventions, do things you enjoy, do it with the people that you like, make it fun, and it's never too late to start. And just as a little bit of context around this picture, 2 out of 3 of us in here had never done a competition before, and we're in our late 40s, early 50s, and this was our first CrossFit competition. We're not the best at it or anything, but we had so much fun. We raised awareness about hormone replacement therapy or menopause hormone therapy, and it was great. So it's never too late to start. Something's better than nothing, and just have fun with it, I think. Yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Lisa?
No, I absolutely love that. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think often these health messages get, I think, a bit lost in this idea that it's all, really hard work and we've got to deprive ourselves and we've got to, it's all a hard slog. And I think that that's such a beautiful illustration that it's not it doesn't need to a hard slog. We don't, I talked about movement rather than exercise. So Jules, you've taken up CrossFit in your 40s. I took up surfing in my 40s, and it's, you can just have fun, and have that social connection around it. It's not about being good at something. It's just about having a go. And it's surprising how much you can get out of just having a new experience. It's very, very fun.
I have had a similar experience. I've only just this year started doing weight training for the very first time. I thought it was time to practice what I preach. So I found a personal trainer to do a program that helped me get around all of my limitations, because I have some, injury and rehabilitation and health issues. And I just check in with the personal trainer, every few weeks or a month, and she ups the ante on the program or tweaks something for me. And it's such a good feeling walking away from the gym knowing that you've made a PB on your deadlift or something, a personal best. You come out feeling really strong and empowered and proud of yourself, with those natural kind of rejuvenating hormones pumping through your body. So I can highly recommend. It's actually really good fun. You've just got to put yourself out of your comfort zone and try something new.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think lifestyle
for
they
me,
need to be fun to be sustainable. If they're not sustainable, then we're just not going to keep doing them. And so I think it goes for all of those 6 pillars. It's not about doing things exactly the right way. It's about having some intuition as well. What feels right for your body, what works for you. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And I think just explore and experiment and find what feels good, to eat, and what feels good movement wise for you, and don't be afraid to try something new and try something different to what you've done in the past.
Thanks so much for all that fantastic information, both of you. My takeaways from this are to do with the fact that around menopause, a lot of stuff is changing. So the things that have always worked for us previously aren't necessarily going to work for us going forward. So the information that you just provided is really gold in terms of identifying what things we need to be focusing on going forwards, and keeping our eyes firmly on the type of chronic diseases that we're trying to prevent as well, like osteoporosis, heart disease, dementia. Let's stay focused on the lifestyle choices and go for a much longer, healthier life and health span. Thank you again to Nurse Jules and Dr. Lisa for the fantastic overview of lifestyle medicine. We really appreciate your time and look forward to getting some feedback from the viewers on it.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.